Hey developers, I heard you're too cool for Unity. That's why you wanna learn how to create simple inventory system in Godot using C# for mobile devices. I use exact same system in my game Sensi Tavern, dev blocks of which you can find on my YouTube channel. Also, I split the video in two parts. In part 1, we're just gonna create a grid control and overlay, and I will show you how to interact with that. And in part 2, we're gonna implement item classes and equip and equip system for you if you want to use this in, for example, RPG game or something. Okay guys, let's start. First of all, I'm gonna adjust the project settings. I'm gonna search for window. We're gonna make it portrait, so it's gonna be 600 with 1024. I'm gonna turn off resizable, and then we're gonna make 2D and expand, and we need to change orientation to be portrait. And we're gonna create user interface node, inventory main. I'm gonna add a scroll control, which is gonna be our main container for the inventory. I am gonna name it inventory container. And as a child, we need to add grid. Not growth, but grid. Grid container. These are three main items of our inventory system. And I'm gonna rename it to be just inventory. We're gonna save the scene, inventory main save. I'm gonna launch just to select current scene as the main. Everything working. I'm gonna adjust size of the inventory container to be full screen. Then we're gonna create new scene, also gonna be user interface. I'm gonna call it overlay. And I'm just gonna add color rect. I'm gonna change color width just as visual, for visual purposes. Doesn't, yeah, pretty much should be good enough. And to this color rect, I'm gonna make it a bit darker. Yeah, like this. To this color rect, we're gonna call it background. I'm gonna add texture, a rectangle. I'm gonna make square and a bit bigger and move it somewhere here. Don't really need to be precise. And I just gonna quick load and our default icons and expand. In future, we're gonna use this one as a display of our item, and we also wanna add label. And I'm gonna move label somewhere in here. I have added a font file to this project just for us to be able to set size of text, which we're gonna change theme overrides, font, new dynamic font, quick load, and robot regular. And we're gonna set it to 50. And text gonna be like item 194. Center, just looks cool. And I'm gonna add a button so we can close this pop-up later. Also gonna add font to the button. Same process. Increase it. Stick in here, doesn't matter, and close. And I will need increase the font size 50. We're gonna say it overlay TSN. we're gonna come back to our main scene and we're just gonna drag overlay scene to inventory main. So it's gonna be added above inventory container. I'm gonna hide it for now, so we don't need it. And okay, let's move on to coding part. We're gonna select our inventory grid, and we're gonna add script, a new script, like C#, grid container. Okay, create. It's gonna be our main class. We're gonna do all logic in here. First of all, we're gonna erase generated code. We don't need it. And we're gonna declare two variables. Each one we're gonna access from editor. First one gonna be public int item size. This one will define how big our items in our grid. And second one gonna be for this tutorial, it's export public and how many items we're gonna display in our inventory system. So it's gonna be display items. 133 is fine. Okay, then we're gonna create our function that will populate our inventory. I'm gonna call it. First of all, it's need to be public as well because we're gonna reference to it later maybe. It's gonna be update slots. No parameters needed. To make it simple, I will just add for now item generation here. Item gen. We're gonna just simply loop from 0 to 133. And we're gonna create texture rect for all our items. We also need to set expand flag, so the icon will expand in our square, pretty much, whatever size we wanna set. Set to true. And we're gonna set minimum size so our texture rectangle would not shrink below it. New vector 2, and we're just gonna use item size as X value and item size as Y value. And last thing for our item. And last thing for our item, we just need to set texture to it. That's gonna be, we're gonna use texture resource loader from Godot. And we're gonna cast it. Use resource loader, load, and our path, which we can grab from here. Icon PNG. And last thing, we just need to add child. It's gonna be item save, and on ready we need to call update slots. Then we're gonna back into our main program, and now we can run it. And we can see that we got our files here and our items here, but we can see a gap between them and also just one column. It's because I forgot to set columns count here. We're gonna use 5 columns, and we also want to go to Steam overrides constants and enable separation vertical and horizontal and leave them as 0. So this one gives us ability to get all these items without gaps and in 5 columns. I also will gonna show you how to remove this scroll bar without losing functionality, and for now we cannot scroll it with the touches. So what we need to do is go to project settings again, type in here touch, pointing, and emulate attach for mouse. And then when we run the project, we can scroll it just by touches. And now we're gonna handle our input. Public override, wait, input. We don't need base. We're gonna define our nodes that we're gonna use. First one gonna be a scroll container itself, which called inventory container. So it's gonna be inf container, and we need to find it. And because our code is attached to grid, we need to put a whole path. So we're gonna access the node from root inventory main inventory container. Be sure you spell it right here, otherwise program will crash or just will not run. We also need our overlay, which is control over, gonna cast it to control and get node, same idea, root inventory main overlay. Next we need our label, and this label is on overlay. We're just gonna access it from our overlay. Same idea over get node, and from that thing it wasn't correct. Wait. Then we're gonna check, because how the Godot engine works, our touches will go through. Even on top of this thing there is another overlay. So we're just gonna check if overlay is visible. We're simply gonna return and do not anything in here. We're gonna do check if event is input, event mouse button, event mouse button. And then we need to know if it was mouse was pressed or a screen was touched. So if we're making this system for a PC, we can just put our logic in here. We can calculate where our mouse was pressed and return item ID or something like that. But if you use it in here for mobile device, every press will trigger it swiping, like scrolling. So every time you're gonna just scroll your container, literally have to press for 1 pixel to trigger this event properly from mobile device. It's almost unreal. So to handle it, we just need 2 variables. First one gonna be a boolean, bool swiping, default false. And second one will need to be vector2. We're gonna call it swipe start, and we're not gonna define it yet. So in here, back to line 42, if we touch the screen, we're gonna set flag swiping equals true, and swipe start current mouse position, because finger on the phone is basically mouse on the screen. And if mouse was not pressed, it means it was released. Which we're gonna handle else in here. First of all, I wanna check if our mouse press was inside of the bounds of our inventory container. Third thing in here I want to do is to check if mouse button was in bounds of our inventory container to avoid false triggers, which we can do by simple math. When mouse button position, it's gonna look big because of names, but pretty much it's just simple math check. It's inventory container rect global position. Just gonna copy this one so I don't need to retype it all the time. Less or equals y plus inventory container rect size and also height. Because we do vertical scrolling, I'm gonna just check by y, because it doesn't matter if it goes out bounds of the by x value, it will not trigger because there will be no columns. And last thing what we want to do here is to check if press was from left button, which is gonna be just simple touch. To do it, we just call with mouse button index and compare it to integer with button list left. Then to avoid precise tabs that I was talking about, we're gonna just check if swipe was less than 10 pixels. We're gonna handle it as the mouse press. To do that, I just define float delta and simply doing mass absolute to get positive value. Event mouse button position minus swipe start y value. And then just simply if delta smaller less than 10, we handle it as a mouse press. Okay, now we need to figure out on what item we actually pressed. To do that, we're gonna make a local mouse position mp and it's gonna be local to our scroll box, to our grid box. And then we're just gonna write down a function that return us ID by mouse point. It can be private actually. Integer get ID by ET. We've got mp vector2 mp. And here we just need to do a simple math. We're gonna find what column and what row we click on. So the column was gonna be iCol equals cast to integer. So we're gonna do division and math. We're gonna do math floor. So we always get flat number, never go round up, so we don't click in the middle of the second middle of the item and move to like next one. And we're gonna do pt mp x divided by item size. This gives us the column we clicked. And same thing with the row. In this case it's y value divided by item size. Item size. And then we're just gonna do return statement, which will return iRow multiplied by columns Columns is a default value of grid that we changed to 5 plus icon. And we're gonna call it in here. Int id equals get id by pt, mouse point, semicolon. So once we got our id, we need to check if it's in bounds of our item list. And simple check if it's more than 0 or equals to 0. And if id less than display items, which is basically count of our items. If we hit the proper item, we're just gonna display our overlay by simply set visible flag to be true. And we're gonna set our label. For example, item plus id string plus some other text, for example, was pressed. I'm gonna save this file and check if it works or not. Okay, it's crashed. Let's check the errors, and if you see this arrow, it's basically we just messed up in our path. And here's the error because I just named it color rect, so let's change it to background. Here's another error, I'm just gonna rename this one. Let's run it again and see it's not crashing anymore. So now we're gonna just check if our button press works. Yep, I clicked on 102, but now we cannot close it because we didn't do coding in overlay. So let's move into it. Same thing, let's just move on to our overlay scene, and we're gonna add a new script in here. I'm gonna erase things, and we're gonna create a new public void, and we're gonna call it on button close pressed, and we're gonna simply just do this visible equals false. That's all we need to do. We're gonna copy on button close, and we're gonna connect the script to the button. To do it, we just go node, pressed, connect, overlay, on button press. We're gonna change our name to on button close pressed, and save the scene, go back to main, run it. You click on it, you close it. You click on it, you close it. And last little touch I want to show, it's how to hide the scroll bar, which is you definitely don't want to because of default design. You can change the theme, but it's better just to remove it completely. To do it, you just need to create a new script on inventory container. New script, C# create. And we just need to put few lines in here. We're gonna define our new theme. Invisible theme. Just gonna call it invis. Then a new theme. Then we're just gonna define style for scroll box, which is gonna be style box empty for our scroll bar. And then just gonna apply it to our theme. I'm gonna apply it for scroll, for V scroll, bar, and our empty style box. And then we're gonna access scroll bar through the command add with scroll bar, theme, and invisible. That's it. Save it. Back to inventory main and run it. We don't have scroll bar, but all functionality in here. That's pretty much it. That's how you make easy inventory system in Godot using C# for Android device. Pretty much for iOS it's gonna work as well. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave a comment. I also stream game dev, art and games on twitch.tv/deadreds, and subscribe for more videos. I will try to make more in-depth and better quality tutorials in future. Thank you.